All right. Hello, testing. All right. Sure. All right. Hey, it's Buck from Bacon Trees. Happy Wednesday, March 18th. Since my wife is working at home and I'm working at home, from home, I have to do some videos in the car. This is a topic I wanted to cover actually a long time ago, and it's about critically evaluating information, especially when it comes to audio and video information. So from an audio point of view, however, it can spill over into the regular world if you want it to. You know, it's all about reading between the lines and getting accurate information about anything, really. So I started out back in, I guess, the mid-90s, changing my career to an audio career. I was doing it part-time for a couple of years, and then I became full-time in 1998. And I've been doing it ever since. Let's put this here. Sorry, I'm just getting organized, getting my notes here. These are my notes for today's video. But basically, I was studying audio. This is how it started. And I was going through certain textbooks, and I was scrutinizing the information in the textbooks. I actually had one book that says how to critically evaluate what you read, see, and hear. It was a really interesting textbook. I forget what it was, but with that idea, I would start to read audiobooks and kind of like fact checking, because when I started reading online like blogs and stuff, I guess before blogs were a thing back in the mid-90s, people were just writing articles online, and I'd read those, but I'd also read textbooks. The difference between textbooks and blogs and articles written online is that anybody can write a blog, and we don't know where the information comes from necessarily, so a lot of it is actually hearsay. So to cut through the hearsay, I would critically evaluate everything I read. So for example, I was reading the Master Handbook of Acoustics, and I read through that, I read it so much that I destroyed it. It just started falling apart. I took it with me everywhere I went because I wanted to know everything possibly I could take in about acoustics. I thought it was a very good book, but then I started to notice a couple of discrepancies in the book. Two that really stand out. I forget what pages they are, but one is the bolt area, where it describes room ratios or ideal room ratios. And then when you look at the chart with all the scientists' names, and then you look at the plot, like the little map, and I'll pull it up here, I'll find it and pull it up for you. They're not the same. There's a mistake in there. It's not a huge mistake, and if you critically read it and really pay attention to the detail, you will notice the mistake. Let me just break in there for a second. That's what I'm talking about. Look at here. This is the describing the room dimension ratios for favorable room modes. And for this ratio, F, which is Loudon, F, 1 to 1.5 to 2.5. Is it in Bolt's range? Yes. Now let's look at F. So here's the actual bolt area, which is Master Handbook of Acoustics, page 276, 6th edition anyway. I had like the 2nd edition or something, maybe 3rd, but this is the 6th. So there's F, Loudon's ratio, height equals 1. So width is for F 1.5, and length therefore is 2.1. So it's 1 to 1.5 to 2.1, not F here 1 to 1.5 to 2.5. It looks just like a copy-paste error. Maybe the person entering it got confused with the Volkmann ratio. So that's wrong compared to the chart. So I don't know what's what. I don't know if it's supposed to be, it looks like it's supposed to be 1 to 1.5 to 2.1. There's also a mistake in the standing wave section as well, where they say tangential is an oblique or something like that. They mix it up. I forget what it was, but I'll show it to you. The 201 mode is tangential by definition because it has two integers and one zero. Now, they've corrected that mistake. They put it back in the tangential column, but in my copy of the book, it's in the oblique column. So it's a little confusing when you're like looking at these numbers when you first start to learn this stuff. Anyway, so they've corrected this error, but they didn't correct the bolt area error. Not huge mistakes, I'm just saying, you just got to verify information, that's all. Then I started reading modern recording techniques, and I noticed some little mistakes in that book as well. not huge. Like if you read the text and then compare it with the chart, well, obviously one doesn't correlate with the other. So there's just little mistakes. And then you have to figure out what the actual real answer is. So there are mistakes in lots of books. There's a mistake in a video from a book called Live Sound Mixing, I believe. And it's a really good book. It's got a lot of great information in there. But in the video, they explain that the most sensitive range of human hearing is between 1 and 2 kilohertz. Well, according to the equal loudness contours, Fletcher Munson, and Robinson Dadson, and generally equal loudness contours, it clearly states that is between 3 and 5 kilohertz. Now, when they say that on the video, it's kind of like, oh, I learned something new today. It's like, well, no, you didn't, because they got it wrong. Then in the textbook, they say between 2.5 and 5 kilohertz, which is way more accurate and correlates with the equal loudness contours. They also say in that video that a triamp system, otherwise known as a three-way system, they said triamp and three-way are the same thing, and that's not necessarily true. You can have a triamped three-way system for a PA system, or you can have a biamped PA system that's a three-way. So three-ways not necessarily equal to triamped. You can biamp a three-way speaker or a three-way sound system. I used to do it all the time. Biamping, 2 amplifiers, but bass, mids, and trebles, three-way. So they got that wrong too. Otherwise, it's a really good video. I have no complaints about that DVD. But my point is, there's a lot of information out there that isn't entirely correct, and you can't just go by one source. So what I started to do after a few years, I think it was like 3 or 4 years of live sound mixing, I decided, because I've always been a writer, I wanted to make some money writing. So I said, what am I going to write about? What do I know about? I know about live sound mixing and my method, so I'm going to write about it. And when you write an article for a major magazine, like I wrote for Mix Magazine, Onstage Magazine, I wrote an article on guitar for Canadian Musician, and I had an article in Canadian Music Trade. But the Mix Magazine and Onstage Magazine were American magazines under the same umbrella. Intertech at the time, and then it turned into some Prime Media, I think. Yeah, it turned into Prime Media. But when you write an article for a major magazine, that goes through a fact check and a copy edit. So they're not just going to go, hey, thanks for the article, we're going to print it. No, they got to check the facts, right? So, which forces any writer to be really diligent and make sure the facts are correct. So for the past 20 years, well, I'd say 1995 till now, so it's 24 years, I've been doing serious research in the audio and video areas and other areas of life too. So I always put my fact-checking hat on when I try to learn new information and not be bombarded with misinformation. Oh yeah, and I had another book called 1001 Things Everybody Should Know About Science, and they said the absolute zero is minus 2,000 something degrees Celsius. No, it's minus 273.15. Everybody, I think, in science and physics knows that. But I'm going to find that book and I'm going to show it to you. And it says absolute zero in Fahrenheit is minus 4,000 something. And it was like, I'm reading this book going, what else is wrong in this book? They get a fact like that wrong, that's pretty bad. So it started to open my mind even more about, you better check your facts. So I got this great book here. It is a really good book called Corporate Event Design. And being, an audio person, I'm like, oh, they have an audio section. Oh, I love it. And in here they state, and I'm going to read it to you. I can read it with my shades on, I'm sure. I'm going to read it to you. It says delay speakers. Delay speakers get their name because the sound they project is delayed from the primary speakers. That's a fact, and that's true. This delay is necessary because sound travels relatively slow. Compared to other mediums such as water and steel and stuff. That is true. So they're saying sound is relatively slow, and they say 1,130 feet per second to be exact. Ooh, 1,130 feet per second to be exact. If they would have just left out to be exact, they would have been right, because everybody has the average of 1,130 feet per second. Sound does not travel at 1,130 feet per second. That's simply an average. It's 1,127.42 at 70 degrees Fahrenheit and 50% relative humidity. And it rises 1.1 feet per second per degree rise in Fahrenheit. That would be exact. Okay, but I'm going to let that go because they said 1130, and all audio people accept that as being the average that we use for math. And if we're going to use that for math, what they say in here, doing some quick math, we know there are 1,000 milliseconds per second. True. So sound travels at 1.13 feet every millisecond. Also true. If the delay speakers are 100 feet from the primary speakers, they should be delayed 113 milliseconds. No, they should be delayed 0.88 milliseconds. If sound is traveling just a little faster, like 1.13 feet per second as opposed to 1 foot per second, which would be easy math, then we have to minus that on the other side, so it becomes 87 point something, which is rounded up for convenience to 88 milliseconds. So they got that wrong. That's the only thing I noticed that they got wrong. Well, the two things. One saying they're exact, which is not exact speed of sound. Whatever, you can let that little speed of sound thing go, but this math is clearly wrong. So you would delay it 88 milliseconds, 87 point something, but we just rounded up to 88 because it's a more easily remembered number. Okay, so otherwise it's a good book. So I'm not complaining about the book. I'm just saying anytime you read something, you got to critically evaluate the information. Otherwise, it simply just becomes hearsay. And as we know, hearsay is not fact. Well, there's people watching me make a video in the parking lot here, but I have no choice. It's really, really good lighting. I'm going to pause this for a second. This woman's looking at me like, what are you doing in there? Well, I'm making videos because it would be too noisy to make videos at home in this current state of affairs we find ourselves in. So anyway, that's my little spiel on fact checking. Also, I've been teaching for 19 years, audio and video related subjects. Audio, like live sound, I've been teaching for 19 years in August. And well, I should say almost 19 years, okay, to be exact. And part of my I'm not a teacher, I'm an instructor. Instructors also work in the field as well as teach classes. So it's an instructor position I've had. And one of the assignments I've had for about 18 years now is for some audio student. No, actually, I've had this for about 16 years. Yeah, because I started this class a couple of years later. So for 16 years, I've been getting audio students in a particular term that I teach to challenge information as like challenge audio information, basically. So I get them to do something fun. I get them to challenge audio or video information, as well, like one fact from the audio video world, and also one fact from the real world. And so I, would say to people, okay, you can challenge the speed of sound, you can challenge, do Bose headphones sound better than Beats headphones, etc., etc. So they would do listening experiments. Now, they weren't all scientific because clearly some students just dialed it in and copied, pasted, and didn't really care about the assignment, but a lot of them actually really cared about the assignment. And they ended up doing some great research. Now, I said, if you really want to get some solid numbers, consider asking 100 people. But I said, but I'm allowing you for some challenges to limit it to 20 people just so you get the assignment done. So people would do between 20 and 50 people. So I have to pause it because people are looking at me like, what's he doing in there? I got a video camera. Everybody's got a video camera. It's not a big deal. Anyway. These tough guys, man. Uh-oh. They're plumbers. These are tough plumbers. Okay, anyway, so with this information, I found it very interesting because one particular challenge was, can people tell the difference between CD quality, like 44.1, 16-bit sound, and MP3s? And a lot of people said, of course you can. And some people said, well, no, you can't. And I said, why don't you just do a test? So one particular student decided, he said, can I do an experiment with the class? Because we had about 30 people in that particular class. And I said, sure, let's do the experiment. And he played WAV file versus MP3 at different resolutions. And nobody could tell the difference between 320 kilobits per second and WAV format. Nobody. A couple of people thought they could tell the difference between 256 and WAV file. They thought they could. They were guessing. Everybody, half the people could definitely tell like 160. Everybody could tell 64, and everything up until about 160, most people could actually hear the difference. But above 256 and up to 320 compared to wave, virtually nobody could actually tell the difference. And you could tell some people were guessing at best. They weren't like, that's so obvious, right? Now, not everybody hears the same. So it actually opened up a few, minds there as to what people believe rather than what's actually true. So I thought that was a great experiment, and I've looked at and marked, of course, and evaluated and researched their assignments since that time. So I include research as part of my life's work because I don't like to just send out facts that are incorrect. They always have to be backed by something. I invite students during classes to challenge me, saying, sir, you just told us a fact. How do you know that? And I'll admit when I don't know something or I'm not clear about something. I have to, because that's what you got to do. You can't just pretend to know everything. You know what you know and you don't know what you don't know. So I'm honest with them, saying, I'm not clear on this, but let's do some research. So what I've been getting people to do in the past few years, when they have their smartphones out anyway, I say, hey, tell you what, since you got your phone out, why don't you Google it right now? Do a little bit of research. Don't just go to Wikipedia. Wikipedia is one source of information, but anybody can update a Wikipedia page. Well, I shouldn't say anybody. You have to sign in and you have to have credible sources and stuff like that. But they don't always cite like footnotes, or they don't always cite where they get the information. Sometimes it's like they need that information and they're waiting for it. So that's only one place to go for information. Anyways, I thought it was like some of these assignments were really, really well designed. There was one particular assignment where students said, okay, which Beats headphones sound better, the white ones or the red ones? And so they went out on the street and they had a white set and a red set. And they said, listen, we need you to know, we want to know which sounds better with select pieces of music. And they found, and they're exactly the same headphones, they were just different colors. And they had so many varying results. Like, people thought they could tell the difference, and there really was no difference between the headphones. Now, some might argue, well, if they're made at a different time in the same facility, there could be slight differences. Well, not enough to actually notice. So I listened to them too, and they both sounded the same to me. So I'm not just going to take their word for it. I need to evaluate what they've evaluated. And so basically that's where I'm coming from, just over 20 years worth of research. So when I do my videos, live sound or soundtrack videos, and then some people give it a thumbs down, that's fine. Haters are going to hate. People are going to do that anyway. I really just wanted to get out there and spread information. It's not like I make a ton of money off YouTube. I don't. I make, if I had a funny cat video or wardrobe malfunction, I'm sure I'd make a lot more. There's just kind of, I could pay a few bills during the year with money I make off YouTube. That's not the point. I started out online in 2006 doing useful videos. Actually, I didn't start doing useful videos until about 2007, I think. I made some goofy videos before that. So my first videos, I didn't know. I just wanted to start a channel because everybody was buzzing about YouTube. But I like to get information out there. I think I'd like to share information with people, stuff that I know, but it's not like when I do a live sound video, let's say, and somebody challenges it, it's like, you're welcome to challenge it. I'm just reporting the facts as I know them, and I invite people to have discussions, healthy dialogue, and, ask questions, and I will ask questions too, because I haven't done everything, when it comes to live sound. I know what I know. I tried out many different techniques on slow Monday nights when there's nobody in the bar, or like when I used to work in bars. I'd say, why don't I try this mic technique tonight? What's it going to hurt, right? And I wouldn't sacrifice the quality of the band or anything like that. I would just do experiments like, what if I switch between Butterworth and Linkwitz Riley? What if I, on my crossover, hey, I should talk about that too. What if I switch these two mics around? What would it sound like? And if it didn't work, I'd put it back. But I would do lots of those experiments just so I knew. So my background in live sound comes from, working at a whole bunch of shows, or planning shows too, like setting up the system, not necessarily operating all of them, operating most of the shows that that I supposedly brag about. I don't brag about it. I'm just, I'm just stating my experience. And it's called ethos in rhetoric, where you just have to explain who you are and what your background is, right? Just so people know you know what you're talking about. Anyway, so I don't put any information on YouTube that I don't know about. Anyway, I'm going to pause for now because those tough plumbers, I don't want to make eye contact. They're coming back. Here they go.